discuss as we go along what can be done, how it changes, depending on how deep you are onto your own journey, energetically, or as far as ascension, as far as changes that go on within you and your spiritual journey. All those affect the way you perceive the relationships and the way that people react to you. Because as you shift, your energy shifts. So people that reacted to you one way and they haven't seen you for a while, and they see your new energy, whether they're seeing it or not, are going to react differently, or even see you in the old way, and it's going to feel different to you. So it's like someone you haven't seen in 10 years or 5 years or even sometimes only a year. They remember you where they left off. They don't know what changes have occurred in you, what energy shifts you have gone through. They have no idea. So they'll typically approach you from the way they knew you. And that will be one way. Then as you're shifting in a relationship, if you're in a partnership, that's also going to bring up a lot of challenges in many ways. Sometimes if you're both changing, it has a certain set of complications. And if only one of you are on an inner journey, it has another set of complications. Because you're learning how to keep a relationship with someone that, will say, was a normal relationship, and you're growing and making some changes and the other person may not. So how do you stay connected with them? How do you still love them? How do you still relate to them is one challenges. Another, with both of you changing, your buttons are going to start to come up. All of your issues, all of your programs, your belief systems are going to constantly be challenged. So you're going to need ways to deal with that and to see things differently, not from your old patterning, not from the old ways. So I'm just kind of going to open it up for just little discussions of things you run into, even if you're just looking to date, even if you're just looking to have a companion friendship. It doesn't matter. This is still going to be relevant in some way.
Yeah, there's so many levels.
Mm-hmm.
So many levels, and we've been through those levels.
Yep.
That we would love to share, but maybe open it up to people to see what kind of questions.
Right.
First, you know.
Anybody? There are actually other people here besides me sitting here. See, and that's not a laugh track. That's really actual people.
Oh, yeah, laugh track. Hi, I'm Tal.
Someone's watching! Yay!
Awesome.
Great.
Exciting.
Hi, I'm Jerry.
Something that I've noticed this week especially, or this past week, with my manager and myself, he's been in such a depression, like a funk, like a I don't know what, and it's affecting the office. And for the first time, it really wasn't affecting me, and I was torn between, well, do I talk to him and tell him what I need to tell him? Or should I wait until he's out of his funk? Or do I just not care and just talk to him anyway because I need to get this done? So I was in between feeling, is it my fault? No, I know it's not my fault. It's him? Okay, it's him. Like I'm in between trying to feel and figure out when I say something, when I don't care, when should I care, when... It's been a little weird this week. But I gave him the option. I said, I need to speak to you about such and such. Let me know when you're available. And he never came back to me.
So what you're talking about is really timing of being considerate of someone else's stuff coming up, right? And about the timing of when to approach them with functional stuff.
Yeah.
But you were considerate of the fact, and you felt, you were in the feeling, felt that he was going through something. So imagine this happens all the time when you're at home with a partner, it's the same thing. But you're with him for how many hours, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So I it was the first time that I was able to discern that it wasn't my fault, that it was his deal.
Right.
So,
Now, so many other things could have happened. You could have projected onto him some male figure in your life that you had difficulty growing up with. You know, you could have projected that onto him and gone into your emotional crap and not been able to talk to him about the matter at hand, meaning I need to talk to you about something.
Yeah.
But since you were in a feeling mode and you were recognizing, okay, he was having a hard time.
Yeah.
That's a good thing. Yeah.
It's just knowing when, yeah, it's your crap, but yeah, you're the manager, and yeah, I got to talk to you about this. Knowing when I should and when I shouldn't. That's the,
Right.
you know, so that's where I'm at. Like, but I was feeling a lot this week, and wow, he was not in a good space this week.
Well, the changes on the planet have been pretty intense, so
Yeah.
it's kicking up everybody's stuff.
Yeah.
People on the journey, people not on the journey. It doesn't make any difference. These energies, these influx of energies are affecting everyone. And if you're paying attention, you'll notice that a lot more people who are not on a journey are being affected, and they're starting to get kicked up. And you're starting to see it in the political arenas and all the stuff that's gone on. This is all about the interchanges that are actually happening to everyone. So when that kicks up, those energies are also disturbing other people's stuff. So people who are not particularly on an inner journey are going to be triggered, or going to be going through their stuff. They won't even know why they're upset, angry, or whatever. And then you, as you start to develop on your journey, and we'll, for the label of this talk, we'll call it the ascending journey. And it simply means ascending in frequency, not being better than, not being greater than, just you're ascending in frequency. As you do that, you tend to become more sensitive. You become more sensitive to what people's moods are. You feel things more. A lot more lights up in you as you awaken. And when it does that, it's also going to awaken all of your issues. And one of the biggest things in all relationships is it's very easy to point the finger at other people and say, oh, you did this, you did that. But it's always all about you. It's never about the other person. And the problem in relationships is that whether it's work relationship like we were just talking about, or whether it's personal relationship, you have to remember that your issues and the things that bother you come from a lot long ago, not from this person in this relationship. These people are not necessarily the causes of your unhappiness or your displeasure. These come from your programs that are a lot further back in this lifetime and even into other lifetimes, and what we refer to as your soul memory, and what you're here to learn and accomplish in this lifetime for your own growth. So the problem that most people run into is they say, oh, if my partner or my boss is having a bad day, well, that's affecting me and they're making me feel a certain way. No, it has nothing to do with them. If you didn't have judgments about hostile people or unhappy people, or you didn't have programs that told you have to take care of and mitigate other people's behaviors, you wouldn't have any issue with them. You would look at them like they were just some tree in the woods, and there'd be no real feeling. It would be very benign. So you have to remember in all relationships that whatever you're feeling comes from inside you, not the other person. We've been taught since children typically that it comes from outside and what people do and how they do it. That is what makes you upset or angry or displeased or feeling not loved. This is not true. This is just a poor teaching and, in a sense, a form of brainwashing from the time you were very young. And then you take that and you believe that, and then you try to have a relationship based upon these programs you've been given that are really invalid. It's not people outside of you. It's the way you perceive the world. It's the way you perceive yourself. It's the way you perceive what other people do, how they do it, why they do it, the meaning you put to other people's actions. And we typically call them overlays. So when you put an overlay on someone, you actually entrap them into a certain behavior and a certain personality style where they can't do anything, because no matter what they do, you're reading them the way you see them, not necessarily the way they really are. And some of you might have found that in relationships you've had people say, that's not who I am, and that's not what I meant, and you know that's what they meant, and you're pretty sure that's why they did it, and you'll tell them too, you did it this way, and that's why you did it. And there's a 50-50 shot you're correct. But you're so sure that it's real, and you feel it so real inside of you that you almost trap them into not being able to be who they are. Computer? I don't know.
It's on my phone.
Okay, cool. And so this is how you limit your own relationships. This is how you limit what's going on in your life, how you can relate to people, how deep you can go, how personal you can get. I mean, add to all that the stereotypes, the everything else that people tie in. Men do this, women do this. And everybody buys into this male-female thing. We would suggest to you that that too is false. It's a set of beliefs that's been programmed into people and certain behaviors for thousands of years, and everybody tends to believe them, and your belief in the belief makes them real. So men aren't necessarily the way you think they are, and women aren't necessarily the way you think they are, even if a lot of the behaviors are common. Most of them are simply the programs that you bought into. Oh, I'm a woman, I do this. I'm a mother, I do this. I'm a man, I do this. And these are belief systems. These aren't the real person. And then as you, as the partner, as you see a male or a female, that's how you project onto them and limit the relationship again. Because they have to fit in certain constraints. Whether the male is supposed to take care of the female, or the female is supposed to take care of the home in your old traditional model, that's all limitation, that's all a projection. And none of that's real, unless you make it real. And then at the same time, if you're in an ascending state or relationship, you're wanting to break out of the old molds. So now you're conflicted between your old belief systems or your partner's old belief systems, and what you're seeing isn't real or isn't working for you anymore. And then you tend to sometimes think that you're fighting against your partner. But really all that's happening is you're fighting against each other's programs or your belief systems. And if you understand that, that allows you to begin to start to see your partner versus seeing what you think you see, and sort of trapping them into certain sets of behaviors and ways of being. So as you ascend, meaning just raise your consciousness, you have to be more aware of yourself and what you bring to the table as far as your own beliefs, as far as your own overlays that you're placing on other people, because all of that is going to affect what kind of outcomes you get. And you can blame the other person. Sure, that's easy. That's the easy way out. It's a pretty hard pill to swallow for most people that, oh, you're creating at least 90% of your experience when you're in a partnership. The truth is, you're actually creating 100% of your experience. Because no matter what they do, how you see it, perceive it, or respond to it is you. It's not them. And so then if you're in, let's say some people get in relationships they don't like. So in that, it's often, why did you get in that relationship? Because you have a belief system that tells you you need that type of relationship. It's not your partner's fault. It's not even really your fault. You're subject to a belief system you're not even aware you have. And so you keep going into certain types of relationships, and then you say, oh, all men are like this, or all women are like this. And that's false also. It's limited to what you're able to see. And so as you ascend, as your consciousness raises, you can see more possibilities, more potentials, more probabilities. And it's still about what's going on inside of you. It's not making things positive. It's not looking at only the positive side of the relationship, because that doesn't work either. It's nice and temporary. It's a nice little Band-Aid. But if you're not working at what's actually going on inside of you that's creating your perceptions, then that too will affect the relationship. I mean, I've done this with Adele personally for years, and it's pretty much the same across the board, no matter what culture either, because I've worked with cultures that don't even speak my language and had the same results and experiences. So,
All right, let's just talk about how you've done it with me. The 15 years that we've been married, 14.
16, 22.
Whatever, it's just a number. But I did more of the blaming. And because I didn't quite understand the work fully like I'm really into now, okay? But I've done most of the blaming, and then he would really blame me. I can think about how many times on my hand I constantly blame me. That's just so weird to look back at that. But, and as I blamed him, as I disregarded him, as I did all those things, he still loved me anyway. Which brings me to that concept: you are not your behavior. You are not your behaviors. Like, he saw the pattern, belief, behaviors that I was going through, and he still loved me anyway. So that was just so. When I realized that not too long ago, and out of all those beliefs and all the disregarding, he still loved me anyway because he understood it at its core. So it's just funny.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
but even though I knew that or was aware of that, that allowed me to clear my own program. So what didn't I understand?
Yeah.
I pretty much understood that whole process. The part for me was my frustration and having to deal with things that made life hard.
Yeah.
Those became my issues that I had to deal with. It's like, oh, really, I got to do all this work. We don't really need to do this, but okay, we're doing this.
Wait, and then when you would get mad, you wouldn't say like, "I'm mad at you." You'd be like, "No, I'm mad at my frustration." And I'm like,
Right.
"You're not mad at me?" "No, I'm mad at my frustration. Disbelief. I got to figure this one out." I'm like, it was very strange. Any conversation I've ever had. But again, he knew this work.
But our old pattern is, you're mad at me, now I'll come back at you. So if you're not mad at me, what do I do with it?
Oh, I've done that a lot. What do I do with this now? You know, it's kind of funny, but there's just so much to get, and it's been just a wonderful journey. And I'm living proof that you can be really dysfunctional and move to this. It's nice. I'm just saying, it's nice. Freaking nice. You're on tape. But yeah. So there's just so much. I'll just comment as we go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's so many layers to this, so many things in this. Your biggest relationship is always the one you have with yourself, and you can pretty much be guaranteed that whatever you're overlaying or blaming your partners for, or whatever difficulties you're finding in relationships, pretty much stems back to you somewhere. Hard to believe for many people. Okay, especially when some people go, "I'm in a very abusive relationship. How can it be my fault?" Well, just to make a real simple one, and it isn't for everybody, but you might just simply be abusing yourself. You might not be listening to your essence. You might not be following your heart. You might be thinking or judging yourself for things you do or say, like "I'm stupid," or "I'm not good enough," or "I'm not lovable," which are common ones. That's self-abuse. Well, to be in that type of self-abuse sets you up for an abusive relationship. It doesn't have to be overt. It could just be very subtle, but you set yourself up for being in those kind of relationships because you're not very kind to yourself. And in every way, you're going to find that it always stems back to you, but then there is this balance of learning how to do it with another person, whether it's a boss, whether it's an intimate relationship. It doesn't make any difference. there's still additional skills that you need. And depending on how you were raised, look at your childhood. Your childhood will predict for you a lot of your own future relationships, even if you think they look different. And look at the way that you grew up seeing genders in your household growing up. That's going to be the way you look at your own inner male and female aspects, and it's going to be the way that you look at your partner, whether it's male or female. Gender relationship is irrelevant. Whether it's a gay relationship or a straight relationship, either way, you're going to have male and female aspects, and you're going to be dealing with them. So gender really has nothing to do with it. It's the qualities of gender, of male or masculine and feminine energies, and what their qualities are, yin and yang, all that kind of understanding. And seeing what kind of projection you have on who are you supposed to be in a relationship. Like, what do you believe about what you're supposed to be in a relationship? What do you believe your partner is supposed to be in a relationship? What do you believe you're supposed to give them and they're supposed to give you in a relationship? Just those 4 questions are going to reveal to you a lot of your limitations that cause a lot of difficulties. And as you move up in frequency, as you move up in consciousness, these are going to get ever more prominent. And you're going to start to see more and more. And if you're not aware of where or why these are happening, you will tend to try and interpret it through your old knowledge and the way you were raised as a human being. So you have to begin to see a whole new paradigm in the way relationships are. And to make it a little bit more complicated, your male and female aspect have to align or get along with the male and female aspect of your partner. So whichever ones are out of balance are going to be coming into conflict. And it's going to look like you're having a conflict in the relationship, and it's really a reflection of what's going on inside of you. And your partner actually is doing you a great service by reflecting to you aspects of yourself you're not aware of. The easy part is to blame the partner or the other relationship, other part of the relationship. They're doing this, they're saying that. But really, relationships tend to be a lot of work because they're a very close mirror. And they're with you a lot, so they reflect a lot to you and cause you to see a lot of yourself that you may or may not want to see. And it's a hell of a lot easier to blame your partner and push the mirror away to say, oh, I'd rather be alone. It's much more comfortable. I'm just going to go be a monk. I'm going to go meditate in a monastery or a nunnery or wherever you're going. And you isolate yourself where there are no mirrors. Well, it's always a lot easier when there's no mirrors. Because I'll bet every morning when you get up and there's no mirror, you probably feel like you look pretty good. But then when you look in the mirror and you see your hair standing up and your, a little dribble on the side of your face, and you go, oh, that ain't looking so good. So it's a lot easier without mirrors. So it's being aware of this when you're in a relationship.
There's one piece of committing to talking to one another and bringing out things that you see internally. Like, I see that, Michael, or Adele, you're doing it again. And not even just the functional stuff, but the internal stuff. You just got humiliated for what? Tell me about it. So you have to be kind in speaking about it, communicating. But there's a piece where we've committed to that, of talking to each other and bringing up stuff that the other person may not want to hear. But we've committed to that. But there has to be some patience. There has to be timing when you're going to bring it up, not when they're completely down. And if you are in the mental, you're not going to feel, let's say Michael is completely going through stuff. I have to, if I'm in my mental, I'll be like, he just needs to hear this. Versus if I'm feeling him, not now. Let's tell him after. Tomorrow, maybe a better day. But I'm very clear on what I see, Michael. You might want to look at this, or vice versa.
So it's being aware of the other person, but not paranoid. Okay, and sometimes you may have a partner who likes to use "I'm not ready yet" as a way to avoid talking about things, or "I'm just always in a bad mood." Then you know it's never time to talk to your partner, because they actually somehow are setting that up so that you can't get into that, and it's another way of avoidance. Then you have to be able to patiently address the avoidance. And again, it takes cooperation. It does take commitment that you're each willing to hear from each other stuff you don't want to hear without reacting.
It's also check internally to make sure you're not trying to fix them.
Yes. Oh, yeah, that's a big one. I won't say for everybody, but most people do like to make the other person's behaviors go away so that they can be more comfortable. That's not how it works.
Oh, yeah.
That's the, oh, it's out there where the problem is. When you realize that it's you who's responding and having the perceptions, then you don't try to fix your partner. You might say, hey, can you modify those behaviors to make it easier for me so I can manage this while we go? But you don't ever say, it's your behaviors that are doing that, and if you just only fix that, then I would feel better. I'm sure most people have said that at some point.
Okay, I did that in the beginning. You know, wanted to fix something. This is what it is. And then as I learned this process, I learned more and more, and then I got to sneakily kind of telling him, oh, I was good. And then sometimes I kind of would fake him out. You'd be like, wait a minute. So you really have to reflect on the core of what your intentions are. I had to do that because, you know, it always backfired. And it didn't get me closer to myself. Didn't get us closer together. It didn't work. So I'm glad I got that one. Gosh.
Yeah.
You get how you fool yourself. You're in denial and you want something, desire. Oh yeah.
So you got to remember, it's not about being sneaky evil people. Although you all are. No, just it is about how your programs or your belief systems operate unconsciously, and they drive you to do those things because they're trying to sustain their identities while you're in this relationship. All of this human stuff has to be dealt with while you're in an ascending relationship because it's baggage. And as you move into the new, or we'll call it a higher frequency of consciousness, you can't bring all this old baggage with you. It's just not possible. Or the relationship goes nowhere, it ends, or something else occurs because you cannot move into the higher frequencies dragging old dead energy with you. It's not love, and I mean more than human love. We're not talking human love when we're talking about love. We're talking about beyond, divine essence love, whatever you would like to refer to it as. But that love will not allow for those denser energies or behavior programs to enter in. They have to be left at the door. So you need to be aware of that you have to know that your old programs have to be looked at and they're going to have to be dealt with. It doesn't make you a bad person, it just makes you a person who has stuff like everybody else. We all get it, we all have it, and the more aware of it you are, the more you get to free yourself from it, which lightens the relationship, which lightens your consciousness, which makes everything work more smoothly and more enjoyably. But communication is definitely the key, and it's not just sitting down and talk about it. It's talking about you at your core with feeling, not from the mind. Many people are trying to do this from the mind. Ascension is not from the mind. the mind won't go. So I'm warning you ahead of time. The mind is not going through ascension. You may tap into the higher mind, but that's not the mind you're using currently. Ascension goes through the heart. Through the heart is a type of knowing where you don't need the mind. And when you move through that gateway and you tap into what we'll call divine mind, now you're in a different place. And there's not these thoughts and these belief systems that everybody deals with. So in Ascension, you're letting go of the old mental programs, the old mind, the old identities, and you're moving into your divine mind, but you can only get there through the heart. And not the heart of emotions, but the divine heart, that essence of your own core, of your own love from your source. And that's when you touch with that and you even relate to a partner who's not ascending from there, the whole relationship lightens up automatically. Things have to shift because there's just a different frequency. Your consciousness is different, the way you deal with people is different, and they'll respond. It will shift. It may take a while, and then with your overlays, waiting for them to respond the old way is going to delay it a little bit, but you'll figure it out. It just takes time.
So even if you're working on yourself
Mm-hmm.
and that person's not doing the same type of work, there's still a way to grow regardless.
Yeah, they're going to be affected. Somewhere they have to agree to grow. So it may be at a soul level or an unconscious level, but they're going to grow. And you can assume that as long as you're staying together, they're growing. They may not be doing the same journey, or we'll call it a conscious ascension journey, but they're going to expand as a human being. And that's their own growth. They may not need to do it the same way you're doing it, but their energy field will shift as your energy field shifts, and then there becomes this different harmony, and you get to still have a very similar life, but the essence of it changes. And so you do grow together. It's as similar as you can have two different hobbies. You might like to sew, your husband likes to shoot guns, and you can both go off and do that and come together and still enjoy your life. You might be on the ascension journey and he may not be, but you come together and you still enjoy life together. That's certainly real.
When you talk about ascending, though, it's almost like there's a piece that you talked about couples accepting each other. Louder? Mm-hmm. Couples accepting each other. And that's what you're asking is more of a higher level. Like I understand what you're saying. Like, can we still? Because I remember with Michael, for instance, Michael and I, there was a point where he was really moving, and I was moving, but in a different way, and we still were relating to each other. I don't know if I can even explain it, but we kind of, I was still more on the mental side, and not that we couldn't have kept doing this, but in order for the relationship to go where we talked about going, I had to really put that down, that mental part. And I had really come over here, but I'm still moving in my own direction, like you just said, shooting guns or whatever, But so that acceptance piece is really important, to accept each other where you are, but there's a fine line. So if you want to talk on that, there's a fine line with accepting, because you have to, accepting is just accepting. You could say the older generation. You've seen them. They've been married for 70 years. It's amazing. They're still married. They've accepted each other for where they are. And that's really great. And that's cool. Grandkids come and visit them. I mean, it's awesome. But where are they really on an invisible level? You know what I'm talking about, right? Like, where are they? Maybe some are, and they have their own thing. But,
Or how connected are they?
How connected are they? Yeah.
Did they maintain a sense of roommates, or did they maintain a sense of partners on a journey? Partners on a journey don't have to do the same thing. They just have to have similar enough connection to enjoy each other. And for here, in my experience, a lot of the older generations would stay with somebody even though life sucked. And they had nothing in common. They didn't even really like each other anymore. But they learned to live together because it was comfortable and it was convenient. You don't have to live like that.
No, right.
And you also have to learn that if you're ascending and your partner may not be on that same journey, that they don't have to be doing what you're doing for you to enjoy being with them. You can just simply enjoy them for who they are and what you have in common, and just even appreciate their life and their journey. There's a whole beauty in just appreciating their journey and enjoying their essence, because it's more about the essence connection than it is the personality design, although that's important. So there's a lot of factors in it, and some people I've worked with tend to get, well, if they're not doing this, then
Right.
we're not going to work out, because they're not doing these courses, or they're not following this way, or they're not doing any meditation, so they don't get it. Yet they may get it in a completely different way. So you're kind of demanding them to be like you. They can't be, they won't be, they don't have to be. Question is can you love you enough to love them? And that's a bigger question. If you're demanding them to conform to you, you're actually saying, oh, I need you to be like me in order for me to like me. Because otherwise I don't like me enough if you're not liking me too. So therefore, and that puts a big wedge in the relationship right away.
Yeah.
Okay, I could share.
Okay, awesome.
Married 50 years. We grew up together.
Oh.
In other words, grew up meaning grown. Like at first 3 years of our marriage, fought like hell, getting a divorce every weekend. And then little by little, through all the coincidences, we did grow. And then when I was about 26, 27, 28, I was in charismatic movement. I came to accept him for who he was. And I had to do what you said. I had to accept me and like me, but he didn't accept me who I was. So he just kept still trying to change me. And I had to kind of like stand in my power and just say, I like me. And at one point I did say that. You don't like who I am, do you? But I like who I am, and I'm okay,
Mm-hmm.
And so in standing in that power and working on yourself through the time, over the years, we've really grown together to a point where we really appreciate each
Oh, that's so
That's awesome.
wonderful.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
So-
really cool.
other. And we're total opposite.
Uh-huh.
Total opposite. If we ever agree on anything, it's kind of like, oh my God, we agreed on something. That don't let that ever happen again. and I remember how Nancy and I even got to be friends. Is that I told her, I said, when we were looking, but the things that were important is that when we were looking at our house, that's right next to Nancy's, and when we were looking at the house, we both had the instinct or the intuition that it really had good energy, and it was really felt good that we both wanted that house. So whenever we both had that intuition on something, it worked. Okay. And so then I was telling Nancy, I said, we said, I said, the house just really felt good. And she's like, oh, she knows what I'm talking about. And that's how we got close and stuff. Yeah.
Okay.
So that's how we developed a relationship. But so over time, over the 50 years, and it's really gotten to the point where he couldn't see, when you're talking mirrors, he could, I knew that when different people that he would condemn, he would be just like that. And I'd have to go, because he's not going to understand it. And after a while, it's interesting because by my shutting up, after a while, he got to see it. And after a while, and now he would say it, and he could be more open, but it wasn't by me telling him. So you're great that you could have that relationship, that you could talk about it. I had to let him figure it out himself.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
He had to figure it out.
Great.
Yeah. But it's good. Very good place right now. I mean, a lot of work. And at one point, it was just like you were saying years ago, I was like you. I took everything that he was doing as an insult. And I was really there. And at one point when he opened enough up to tell me where he was coming from, and at some point then I would even say, I don't know where you were coming from. Where were you coming from when you did that? And then when he would open up and say he was doing something as a compliment that I was taking as an insult. And I'm like, wow. So it's
Right.
like, it's all perception.
Exactly,
It's all
it is,
perception.
yep.
So it's all a matter of if you can get to a point of getting the wall down to asking a question, where were you coming from? And finding out naturally, when you find out where somebody was coming from, of course they're going to do it that way. Because that's where they're coming from.
Sure.
And as you're looking at yourself, you're saying, of course, that's where and you do your own work as to, oh yeah, I can understand why that's pushing my button, as I've worked on the 55 concepts and stuff. And it's like, yeah,
Yeah.
okay, that's where that's coming from. Oh yeah, it's me.
Yep.
So, yeah, so I thought I had to share that. Yeah, totally different.
Yeah.
No, I've had friends ask me that question, because, and even in my own relationship, because my husband, is not into this either. But I know that on some levels, I feel like he's worked on some of this stuff in another lifetime, because he does get this on some level, which is nice.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, just because you're in a partnership doesn't mean you're going to have an exact same journey. You're together to enjoy each other, and your journeys may be different, but you get to do it together. Because you're right, maybe he did do it in another lifetime, and that isn't what he's here for this time. But he still gets to spend time with you. So why not? Why can't that be? Feel sorry for him.
I'll say it for him. He's not in the room.
Yeah. That's right. For me, this process, you live the process to the core. So living with Michael was saying, a few times I had to say, you are required to wait for me, or be patient with me. I'm not getting this quite yet. Probably what your husband says sometimes, don't wait. And sometimes you would just, as you would say, the fairy dust thing, like you thought I got it. Well, yeah. No. So it took a while, but it's
Yeah,
really neat.
you have to be patient with each
You
other.
gotta be patient.
Yeah. And you can travel this into just everyday relationships too. It's just whether it's neighbors, whether it's work people, it doesn't matter. It translates very similar. What you do is specifically different, but it translates very similar. I mean, all relationships end up that they're pretty much the same. If you choose an intimate partnership, it's different because you're choosing something different and you're actually behaving different. It's like the difference between if you had knitting friends and hunting friends. You do different things with them. Not going to bring your guns to the knitting group.
No.
Well, you might, but you don't really belong there.
So that's like speaking their language,
That could
right?
create a whole other problem.
That's funny.
You can knit them a holster.
There you go.
Oh my God, that's funny. That's funny.
Then you could also imagine taking the knitting needles to the hunting lodge.
Oh, like
Oh, yeah. Oh, hi, guys. I got my needles. Oh, it's hunting time.
So that's like behaving and speaking one's language when you enter the hunting lodge, right? Yeah,
Oh
that's so important. Yeah. Huh.
I finally did see that the overlay. I actually used that term when I had talked to Avery this past week. It sunk in, the whole overlay thing, that as a child, that you bring along the relationships that you've had with your parents or your siblings, and you just kind of like lay it right on top of that new relationship, and then you look for all those things, be it the issues, be it anything else, for validation that you have gotten from the relationship with the original people that you
And you made up the overlay with.
yeah, and then it's amazing how, like, it took me that long to finally see that. But I just see it so clearly now, how that's been manifesting in my life.
Yep. manifests in everybody's life. So the way we refer to it as an overlay is basically a belief system you place over every circumstance you encounter. And if you imagine it, it's like a grid. It's like let's take a piece of cardboard like this big, and you're looking at a picture, and that grid you lay over it, and it has little holes, and you're trying to line it up with all those little holes in the picture to say, oh yeah, this picture is this. Look, all the holes align. Or they only align this day, so it's this part of the grid, and you overlay that onto all of your relationships because it's what people do. It's an unknown and unconscious belief system that you just kind of put on everything you do. It's been called filters, so people see it as a filter, a projection. They project things onto others, all different metaphors for it. But really, and if you imagine like an overlay, it is like a blanket. When you place that, imagine that overlay is an energetic field of consciousness that you place on someone. Well, that changes the vibration of that person, the way you perceive them. Doesn't change them on their side. So that's why from their side it'll still always look different. And they won't know why you're seeing it that way. Because they don't particularly feel that. They just feel that no matter what they do, you still see them the same way and they don't understand. So it kind of traps them.
Oh yeah, as soon as you do it, you lock them into that.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no chance of any relationship. I interrupted you.
Well, no, I would change it
Go.
to no chance of any relationship other than what you're looking for.
Then what you're looking for.
And you
the
don't even
overlay.
know you're looking for it, and that's the trick of it. So with that trick, you don't know what you're looking for, and they don't know what you're looking for either. So you'll often hear the other partner going, I don't know what you want from me. I said this, I said that, I said this, I said that. What do you want? I can't find the answer. This is really frustrating. Oh, you don't understand me. That's a good line. You don't understand me. My friends understand me. Or my school friends understand me. Or my parents understand me. Yeah, because they're in the same overlay. So they get it. They have the pattern. The other person doesn't have it. They don't know what you're talking about. They have a whole other set.
Right.
So you're playing with two different decks of cards. And it's hard to understand.
And this is the progression of this. Like you're finally getting it. Oh, I just put an overlay on it, and you're in the middle of something. This is what I have done. I'm sitting there with Michael and we're doing our thing, whatever. Let's say there's a fight or whatever. And all of a sudden, I see the overlay. Like I know what an overlay is. I just changed his whole face, if you can imagine, to somebody else. There are times when this is the progression. The beginning, I understand overlays. Oh, I just did it in the meeting yesterday. I saw the overlay. Oh, then it's in real time. Stop what I just said, Michael. I just put an overlay on you. I just turned you into my dad. Oh my gosh. Or I just turned you into somebody. And then you switch it. And then you can then put it down and then talk. Or you have to walk away, whatever. But
and allow for the other person to come out. So if you have that overlay, it's still constraining them in the relationship. If you can actually put that aside, that allows them to show up in the relationship. But if you're really stubborn and stuck in your program, you'll hold that overlay at them and tell them that they just don't understand, they just don't see life the same. So this just isn't working. Well, of course not. You're making them be something energetically that they aren't. And they can't be. So they can never measure up. And of course, you can go share that information with your friends who have the same grid, and they'll go, yeah, I understand. He's terrible. She's brutal. Oh my God. She just doesn't listen. And of course they'll agree, because they're all looking at the same thing.
Here, let me show you the overlay. Look at this. Look at this. You won't believe this.
So you have to learn how to take that off and let the other person reveal themselves to you. Stop trying to control who they are, why they did it. Telling them why they did it is even worse. Because now you're getting the nails out. This is what you're doing. I see the grid. It's right there. You can't move it. This is who you are. And they go, well, I don't know what to do with that because I can't tell you who I am. You're not listening. So, well, yep, it's not working out.
Okay, let me continue the story now, right? So you put that overlay on there. You finally realized it. Oh my gosh, so you take it off. So now you expect that person to be okay now. But you just hammered the nail into them. So they have their own issues with it. So I used to say, all right, get over it. Michael, I got it. It was the overlay. And he would be like, I need time. I need time to now recover.
Wait, honey, let me get the spike out of my forehead.
Give me a minute. Give me a minute.
Oh yeah, that's got to stop bleeding before I can pay attention. Hold on a minute.
Guilty as charged. Yeah. Hey, there was things for him to learn.
So you got to get how to get a spike out of your forehead, how to stop the bleeding.
There's a skill
I
in
did
that.
learn all that.
There's a skill in getting a spike out. I'm just saying.
But you have to realize that once you've done that, you have to let that person recover. Because then all of their programs kick up. Now they have an overlay on your side, and they've got to take that overlay off, plus get the spikes out of their head, and then they have to recover to come back and talk to you from a neutral place. And that takes time, it takes patience, but often it's, oh, once I'm done putting the nail in your forehead, you should be over it, right?
That was the
Now let's
that
go
was
be
the
friends
disregard.
again. I'm not ready. Then you have the other hand where people hold on to that, and they have the grudge holders. No, you spiked me yesterday. This is going to take me a month or two to get over it. I'm not quite ready to forgive you yet.
Whatever comes first.
Well, I was glad that you didn't hold grudges, so that worked.
Yes.
You just need to give me maybe another couple of days because there's lots of nails in here and I had to get them all out.
You have to realize that you're doing that on both sides. This is going to be natural. This is natural just in human evolution anyway. But as you're ascending, especially the people who start to do too much reading and get too mental in their journey, then it becomes all about the process. It should go this way and it should go that way and you should do this and you should do that. Why aren't we doing this? And this isn't working because you're not feeling anything and you're not giving the person time to feel, time to recover. You got your agenda. Let's get to it. Let's go. Come on, you're a little slow over there.
Not to mention, you're so fully in your head that the other person's a feeler. They're lost.
Right.
They don't have the slightest idea what you're talking about.
Mm-hmm. So, and you learn to laugh about it. Because
Yeah, that's a little
Yep.
hard sometimes.
Kind of is.
Especially when you're in your shit.
Yep.
Wait, but one thing I'm finding amazing that has also become more clear to me is how, like, I obviously I've done it, but I'm watching how some people, when somebody says something to them, they do hear it through their filters, and they totally, like, miss the mark on what that person was trying to say. I mean, totally, you can say, like, oh my God, like, all he was doing was saying blah, 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 and you just went, I'm going to just knock that out of the park and, like, really react to it.
Mhm.
And they do. They, like, really go crazy about it. You
Yes.
know? It's amazing. Just only start seeing that.
Right, and then
That's good.
you have that, so it's simple as like, well, honey, would you put that over there? You're always criticizing me. I'm
Yeah.
always doing something wrong. Well, no, that's not what I said. I just said, would you put that over there? No. I just can't ever do anything right for you. Like that kind of thing. And then we have the more spiritual people, which can be a little funny sometimes. That you're throwing that bad energy at me. I can't be with this negative energy. You're always so negative. It's hard for me to get connected. It's hard for me to connect to you because this negativity you carry. Well, no, honey, I just said, would you move that over there? I didn't say anything else. No, I heard what you said. It was the energy behind your words. It wasn't what you said. Okay, that's called another overlay.
Okay.
So what tends to happen sometimes is when we're spiritually evolving, we're going to have a new spiritual overlay card. So we had our human overlay card. That's the first layer. Now we're evolved. We have a spiritual card. That goes over top of that overlay. And then we go, spiritually speaking, my human issues are this, but I'm evolving and you're not. I don't understand this relationship isn't working out. So now we have double layers. But I know, look, I've read about it, I've taken these courses, I can feel energy now, I get it. And you just don't understand. You're just not sensitive. Okay. What do you say to that? So now you're trapped under two overlays, pinned down on the ground, nailed to the carpet, and you're going to go, I can't argue with you right now, so I guess you're right. You're more evolved than I am. And it's not your issue. So that's a good one that happens too. So you have to watch that you don't actually take your new spiritual understandings and make them your old overlays with new clothes. And now you have the spiritual reasons why your partner's messed up and you're not. Just remember, it's always a mirror. So when you're seeing your partner is messed up, you need to know you're talking to yourself. I mean, of course, we're not talking where they're physically beating you or holding you at gunpoint. We're talking about just normal human exchanges.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So you have to be aware of that. We're not talking about extremes, of course. So you have to use logic, but logic goes out the window with overlays too. What logic? I got these two cards here, and one's telling me this and the other's telling me that. So what do you mean? I don't need any logic. It's all here. It's the energy of what you're saying because you just criticized me.
Mm-hmm.
No, not necessarily. So it's like you have to be logical here. You have to be factual. Not just what you think you thought you saw, but it has to be factual. It actually has to have happened. So that makes a big difference in whether the relationships are going to work at all. And that's why oftentimes you'll find yourself in another relationship, whether it's friendships or partnerships, you're going to see that there's a similar pattern. If you can't see the pattern, then you have another overlay on top of that. That's called the blind spot. That one's just the I've got everything right overlay. It just keeps happening to me. You know, bad things happen to good people. It's just the way it is. I am a victim to the universe, and I just have to do some more meditation and prayer. Okay? So you need to realize that you can go way to one end or you can go way to the other end. You have to find a balance and always know that it comes from within. It's within you that's affecting the relationship. That's creating the relationship. That's creating the way you experience or feel the relationship. Again, outside of the other person being obviously ignorant, rude, unkind, etc. When it seems to be little things that are pointing and you're hurt all the time, you need to know it's pretty much guaranteed going to be you. If you're with a partner who's just a half-decent person, you probably picked them because they were a half-decent person. So you got to kind of know that in the back of your mind. So to think that the half-decent person that you picked is that critical all the time needs to be a signal that it's probably about you. And if you did happen to pick a very critical person, then what does that say about your overlay?
Mm-hmm.
It tells you that the overlay you have is something like, I need to be criticized, I need to be devalued, I need to be degraded. And it's a belief system. It's not something that you know in your conscious mind. It's something that you carry in your subconscious that says, I'm not lovable, I don't deserve to be loved. So let me pick someone who is not going to love me and will show me that they're not loving me so that I can feel fulfilled in what my overlay is telling me I'm supposed to experience. So even though these don't make any sense, they are the way that the subconscious programming works that creates your experience that you're actually creating. Now, not that you would sit logically and pick that way, but it is what your overlays and your belief systems are creating for you. Until you own that you created the situation you're in, you're always going to have another situation. That's one of the biggest parts, is knowing that while you're in your ascending or you're growing, that you are the creator of your experience, wholly, in totality, and accept that. both the good and the bad that you perceive in it. And until you do that, you're always going to feel trapped. Because you're always going to be looking to the outside world to change the way you feel internally. And it's the opposite. It's what you create internally that you perceive or experience externally. And the other people are just providing you with the opportunity. In a way, those people are doing you services for you to self-discover rather than to blame. But it's a tough one to switch to the idea and the method of thinking. So.
Cool. How's it going? That's one.
Anybody else? Anything? Any questions? Things you bumped into? Want to share? Don't want to share? Or are we over? I'm over.
That was a lot.
Everything that you spoke about described my marriage to a T.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was my overlay on him, me being a victim, and he was just like, why does he hate me? Why does he? All those things. And we didn't communicate. We didn't anything. I'm just feeling everything right now.
Good. Good for you.
And it's really like my idea of a great marriage was that he was in one room and I was across all the way on the other side, and then we were happy. If we weren't, then like not together, and I didn't have to hear him. So that was a great explanation. I'm just seeing like all those overlays and everything that I did, and my idea of the marriage was that the man could do that, he couldn't do anything, and that my father could do everything. So if something broke in the house, I would call my father to come and fix it, and he would get all mad because he was doing it. It just
Right. You totally disregarded.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so, and I chose someone like my mother, but I was expecting him to be like my father. It was just really
That's awesome.
Wow.
That is awesome.
So that's a
Yeah.
tricky one to figure out from the other side, huh?
yeah.
Yeah.
I can see it now, but I was expecting a quiet dude that would, do whatever I told him. So I was like my mother. But he was like my mother because if I chose someone like my father, he wouldn't be there. So I was really whacked. So it was really cool to feel that while you were talking about that, and all my overlays all on top of things, and then couldn't understand why you wouldn't listen to me. So that was
Wow.
Yeah.
good.
It's the same thing with communication. Well, you did talk a little bit about communication, but you expect the partner to know how you communicated when you were young and how your family communicated. This is what we did. We assumed certain things, and why aren't you understanding? So Michael used to say, yeah, you kind of spread your little fairy dust, there it is, and then expect me to figure out what you're saying. Oh, yeah, but that's they kind of did that for me. What do you mean? So, the communication, you just assume that they're gonna, no,
Yes.
you have to use the words that this person is going to understand. Like your marriage, we are complete opposites too. And I had to see the opposite, and I had to know how he communicated so I could speak and not have him just assume to pick up my language or this kind of thing.
Yeah, and I used to be very, very, of course he knows why I'm hurt.
Right.
Yeah, that's
no clue.
That's a good assumption everybody
Yeah.
makes, right?
He knows, of course he hurt me. He hurt me so bad.
Yeah.
And why would he keep doing it? He
Yes,
knows.
because he knows I'm hurt. There's no clue.
I finally learned. Okay, I was just humiliated just now, or I feel this way. Okay, but I had to he doesn't get it.
I'm like, what are you talking about? Why?
He had no clues.
Because it didn't
You
bother
hurt
me,
back
those
there?
things that bothered her.
Exactly.
Wait, what do you
You
mean?
know?
I wouldn't. It's funny.
Yeah, there's a lot of assumptions going on. Everybody thinks everybody knows what everybody else is doing. Because we all, in this country right now, we generally speak English, so everybody thinks everybody's speaking the same language.
Yeah, there we go.
Not at all.
No.
Exactly.
everybody has different meanings to the same words, and everybody assumes everybody knows what everybody's talking about. And then
And
everybody
knows how you feel.
Right,
Yeah.
that's even better yet.
There's so much involved.
And why you feel that way. And the fact that he would do it again, knowing how I feel, geez, that must make him really cruel.
Yeah, it was.
This should be discussed on a first date. A to Z. How did your family communicate? How did your family feel? Did they ever express the feelings? I mean, it should be, right?
Probably would narrow the second dates.
And you own knitting needles and a gun.
Any sharp objects or weapons?
A metal detector here.
There you go. And then a polygraph machine over here.
Oh.
No, because then you'd be thinking, are they manipulating the answers? Do they know how to get around that machine? No.
Oh, those potentials. I love it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, that would be good to talk about potentials. I don't know what time is it?
Yeah.
Anybody know? Oh, one.
Yeah.
One thing about the potentials, that's your you have no idea. So in the beginning, it was like, I know, and I was hurt, and this is how she is, Michael. And then it got to when I started to learn about that, and it was like, well, Michael, I feel this way, I'm charged. She could have done that, or done it that, or just didn't even know why she did that. Oh, remember you were shocked. She's actually seeing the potentials. She's not completely just putting the overlay on and blaming her right away. So that was just so helpful for me, and it helped even in the relationships that I've had.
Yeah, the deal is you never know what somebody else is doing or why they're doing it. I don't care what you think. Unless you have it confirmed from them, you don't know. You have no idea. Oh, you can be pretty sure. You could have a high probability. You could be 80% right. But unless you said, hey, John, why did you do that? And they said, because I was being mean. You don't really know. Everything's just speculation. Because, like she was talking about potentials, you have to understand energetically in every relationship, there's always infinite potentials of any one experience. And unless you get confirmed by that individual, there could be multiple or reasons why any individual is doing something. They could be doing it because they're mad at you or because they're hurt. Or they could actually doing it because you now. Anything